Vuvuzela, the African trumpet. African warrior, blow out your trumpet. African people, listen to me. African leaders, let us unite to make Africa one big nation, one big nation, one great nation. African Union, African future, African tribes, African kingdom, African language, African heritage, African love, African pride, African union, African destiny, African drum, African rhythm, African beat, African root, loving Africa, African power, African pride, African beauty, African creation, African wonder, African union, African future, African tribes, African kingdom, African language, African heritage, African love, African pride, African union, African destiny, African drum, African rhythm, African beat, African roots, loving Africa, African power, African pride, African beauty, African creation, African wonder. Support Ibrahim Traore, let us support President Kagame, let us support Julius Malema, let us support Assimi Goïta, not forgetting Abraham Chani for the union of Africa, African Union, the only answer to our progress, to our success. United we stand, divided we fall. Let us say no to autocrats. Let us say no to hunger and envy, to hunger and envy, to hunger and envy. African Union, African future, African tribes, African kingdom, African language, African heritage, African love, African pride, African union, African destiny, African drum, African rhythm, African beat, African rules, loving Africa, African power, African pride, African beauty, African creation, African wonder. Preserve our fauna, strive to conserve our flora. Let us exploit our resources to make Africa a tourist magnet, to make Africa a super economy of this universe, of this universe. African Union, African future, African tribes, African kingdom, African language, African heritage, African love, African pride, African union, African destiny, African drum, African rhythm, African beat, African roots, loving Africa, African power, African pride, African beauty, African creation, African wonder. Africa is rich in raw materials. If we unite, we'll make Africa a breadbasket of this universe, a breadwinner of all nations, of all nations, of all nations. African Union, African future, African tribes, African kingdom, African language, African heritage, African love, African pride, African Union, African destiny, African drum, African rhythm, African beat, African roots, loving Africa, African power, African pride, African beauty, African creation, African wonder, African Union, African Union, African Union, African Union, African Union, African Union. From the north to the south, and from the east to the west of Africa, here I come as the true son of the soil. I kneel down before all current African leaders of this rich and magnificent continent, urging you to strongly support Ibrahim Traore, Patrick Lumumba, Paul Kagame, Assimi Goïta, Julius Malema, Abdourahamane Tchiani, and many African leaders who advocate Pan-Africanism. Our unity is our strength, our division is our weakness. Jah Rastafari.